We are live.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Council. I'd like to call this regular Council meeting of February 25th, 2025 to order for the adoption of the agenda. Someone want to make that motion for me? Councilor Palmer, Councilor Devlin, all in favor? Motion's carried. Adoption of the minutes of the regular Council meeting of February 11th, 2025. Councilor Devlin, Councilor Lusal, all in favor? Motion's carried. And I would like to defer adopting the minutes of the special council public hearing meeting of February 20th. We've just received an email from a speaker who says his comments weren't reflected correctly. So we'd like to get that reflected correctly, and then we will bring it back to this meeting. However, Councilor Palmer, you have a few comments that you would like to make about that.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Yeah, so regarding the special council minute meetings was basically business arising were my comments. So just, I guess, through to council in the community, there is kind of four main themes that I take away from the public hearing that I had. One, there was an appreciation for the work the city's done, work staff has done on the zoning bylaw. And even in a number of the comments and submissions where there was concerns, there was also applause of the work that went into this zoning exercise. The other three sort of general that I'm needing to really contemplate and see what council might do is the themes were around parking. So in general, the zoning bylaw is, the new proposed bylaw is in some ways perhaps relaxing some of the parking requirements in some ways. The theme that I was hearing and reading was that until we get our parking strategy in place, that we might be putting the cart before the horse in parking in general. The second point was, in general, was a theme of stronger protections for the heritage protection of the community. And so there was a fair bit of expression of concern about the degradation of the heritage components. More than once it was said, once we lose it, we're not getting it back, kind of thing. And that's certainly was reflected in the McCarthy House discussions as well. The third point that I heard was, despite a lot of innovation and creativity that the planning department and the community has implemented wording in the bylaw, the proposed bylaw, to enable infill and responding to the province's requirements of higher density in residential areas. There was a theme of even allowing more creativity and innovation, so not being overly prescriptive. And I think there was some very valid points on that. If I'm understanding, that may require an additional component to the OCP, amendment to the OCP. So those are the three four themes, three possible changes as we come back in March with possible resolutions. And I just wanted to share that with council. I don't know if there was any themes that others had from their takeaway as we contemplate what direction we might give staff in the future. Thank you, Mayor Souls.
Thank you, Councilor Palmer. Councilor Cherry, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to piggyback some of what Councillor Palmer was saying, but I also wanted to just clarify. From what I heard in the meeting, issues around parking seem to relate from historical developments. Our historical downtown where there is zero parking. It didn't seem that the parking issues were related to the new zoning bylaw and the slight relaxation. In fact, when speaking with residents, they all seem quite in favor of the parking relaxation for new development, since our over-restrictive parking bylaws are the reason why we haven't seen development, even development such as secondary suites, for the last 20 years. or at least on a much smaller scale. It's been quite unfair to have to hear from residents that they have to pay $25,000 cash in lieu for each parking spot when they need to put a basement suite in their place. Since basement suites usually need 2 spots, they're paying $50,000 cash in lieu because their property didn't support it, or because the city didn't like that they were trying to add a driveway into the sorry, I'm losing my words here, into the city right away. Our new bylaw opens up the opportunity here to add more parking spots to the residential area with the limited restrictions we have in there. So I just want to get clarification if Palmer thinks that the parking in its current state is the issue, or if in the zoning bylaw is the issue.
Response, do you want to respond, Councillor Palmer, or prefer to leave it?
Largely leave it. I guess the response is there was comments about parking, and it probably crosses a line from my lens anyways, what I was hearing from the public on what's allowed in this proposed zoning bylaw, but also what's our long-term strategy on parking.
Appreciate that. We'll have a chance to discuss this wholeheartedly a little later on.
Right.
But I'm just going to ask briefly if there's any other councillors that would like to make any comment prior to me asking for a motion to defer the minutes until we have them corrected to so we have everything concise. Seeing no other comments, or you have another
I'll
comment?
just probably just to clarify and make sure there isn't any procedural problems. It was reported that Councillor Cherry, to the mayor, that you would be collaborating with undisclosed others. I think that was an interpretation that was maybe not the intent of Councillor Cherry, and I think that procedurally is important. So maybe just get clarification, Councillor Cherry, on that.
Okay, Councillor Cherry, comment?
Can you please repeat that? The sound did cut out a bit.
So through the mayor, it was reported that you would be collaborating on possible motions with undisclosed others.
Oh,
And procedurally, we cannot receive any new information from anybody. We can get clarification from staff and that kind of thing, but we can't receive new information. So I just wanted to get clarity.
for clarification, do you mean in my last comment or at the hearing?
At the hearing.
At the hearing, I believe I said I would be collaborating with staff to bring forward motions for council. And if I didn't, that is what I meant.
Good. All right, thanks for that clarity. Okay, I'm going to make that motion to defer the minutes until we get them clarified, and that'll be at the next meeting. So someone want to make the motion or second the motion for me? Councillor Palmer seconding. I'll call the question. Oh, do you have a comment?
Sure, just seeking clarity on why we're deferring the minutes.
We just got an email. All of council received an email from one of the participants who said his comments weren't correctly reflected in the minutes, and he would like that changed and reflect correctly. So our staff will need to review the video to make sure that it's correct.
Sorry, and just for, thank you for the clarification. When did we receive it?
Just moments ago, prior to the meeting starting.
Just wondering procedurally if that is standard, because it seems anybody could write in and say that isn't exactly.
Well, we wanted to make sure that the minutes were correct. I believe they may be. However, speaking with Ms. Floyd, she said I could defer until we looked at the video to make sure things were correct.
Okay.
Okay, Councilor Palmer?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Minutes, what actually happened doesn't get edited after the fact. Minutes are sometimes corrected, and that belongs at this table here, not with anybody else at all. Others can't write into the minutes, and if we adopted it, then that becomes the official record. I think it's fair for us just because there's no urgency to do the due diligence. It won't be the person that has concerns that will be making that decision. They'll be looking at the video to clarify the minutes accurately reflect that broad statements that
Yes,
particular person.
and our staff will be doing that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on that motion? Saying none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of deferred? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Going on to business arising from the minutes. I know I kind of circumvented that with the special council meeting minutes, but anything from the regular council meeting of February 11th. Seeing none, I think we've dealt with the special council meeting minutes because we're deferred. I'm going to go on to announcements from the mayor. So a couple of announcements. Our short-term rental project update public information meeting will be held tomorrow, Wednesday, from 6 to 8 p.m. in the meeting room MP3 at the community center. Mr. Simon and his colleagues will do a brief presentation. The meeting will be live streamed and there'll be ability to ask questions in person or virtually. The intent of the meeting is to spread the word on the project and answer any questions the community may have at this time. Second to that, the Ready Grant public evaluation meeting will be held on Wednesday, March 5th at 7 p.m. in the Revelstoke Community Center in all of the MP rooms. And just encourage your family and friends to come out, learn about the community projects and to vote for the projects that will best serve Revelstoke and CSRD Area B. Voting will be taking place at the end of the night and only those in attendance may vote. So we hope to see all of you there. Moving on, we have a delegation. Our Revelstoke Museum and Archives curator, Kathy English, is here to do a presentation. So Kathy, if you'd like to come forward to the podium, and Councillor Palmer's moved the podium so that our councillors online can see you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Mayor Sauls and councillors and staff. It is my great pleasure to present the annual report from Revelstoke Museum and Archives. You will have received our report and our financial statement and budget. So I'm just going to do a just brief recap of what we've been up to throughout the year. We actually have been calling the last year our year of getting things done. Quite a few projects that we managed to finish and launch, and a lot of things were happening. Our visitor numbers were close to 17,500 people. The majority of that number were people visiting the gift shop and not touring the museum. But we had a significant increase in actual people doing tours as well. And our admission revenue was $26,000. That's definitely our best year ever and a significant increase over previous years. We added 70 new objects to our collection, including a training suit worn by a former local skier, member of the Canadian ski team, Kendra Kabelka, and a very odd addition, a whiskey jug that was found on our own property when they were digging for the lift installation. So very curious as to why there's a whiskey jug in our backyard, but it's now in our collection. We also added 535 photographs to our collection, bringing our entire photograph collection to more than 14,000 photos. When I started working at the museum in 1983, we had fewer than 2,000 photographs. So we have a significant photograph record of the community. Significant parts of our collection are available for viewing through the BC Regional Digitized History Portal, maintained through UBC Okanagan Library. There were more than 25,000 views on our portal in 2024, with the majority of the users accessing the photograph collection and the high school yearbooks. We continued to host several school and youth groups and ran our successful cemetery and downtown walking tours, with Bill McFarlane and I sharing the tour guide duties. We had 320 participants at the Brown Bag History Talks and more than 6,000 views of the talks on YouTube. So we have a really significant online presence now. The gift shop continues to bring in valuable income for the museum and provides the showcase for local and regional artists and artisans. The Heritage Garden turned 20 years old in 2024, and our team of dedicated volunteers continued to keep it looking beautiful. They are planning to create a small xeriscape garden on the Boyle Avenue side to promote low irrigation and water conservation, and they'll be using that sort of as a training garden and teaching others how to practice xeriscape practices as well. We also celebrated our 50th anniversary in the old post office building that we're in now, And this year we'll be renewing our lease of that building with the city. I believe we owe the city $50 with a $1 a year agreement for that. So nobody's ever come after us for the $1 a year. Though over the year we had 35 volunteers who contributed about 700 hours of work in all areas of the museum work, in terms of including helping with exhibits, carpentry work, garden volunteers, just any of our programs, helping with events. They just make a huge contribution to our work and add to the fun and joy that we experience together working at the museum. We continue to have a strong presence on social media and in the community, finding plenty of ways to share our history and our connection to the community. This year, we completed our online version of the Stories Beneath the Surface exhibit and produced a photograph book of the same name. The stories of the effects of the Hugh Keenleyside Dam on this region is an important story, and we found multiple ways to share that. And that really came out of a recognition years ago that people didn't know why the flats were the flats, and they didn't know that there'd been significant farms there, that there'd been a Ukrainian community there. And so our Stories Beneath the Surface exhibit has really brought that to people's attention and made people aware of that significant loss of land and agriculture, and just the effects of the hydroelectric power on this region. We all opened a new exhibit this year, Reclaimed Voices. It features little told stories, including stories of women and children, the Japanese Canadian community, which was more significant than even I had realized until we delved into the research. And we also included the story of Adeline, a Snayaks woman whose husband was shot by a settler at Galena Bay in 1994. And she still has living relatives, and Laura Stovall was able to interview some of the relatives and create a story about Adeline and bring that to people's, to the forefront. We also produced 2 smaller books, a coloring book featuring sketches based on historic images, and a new heritage walking tour book. We also produced a print and online map of the historic river trail panels and the other heritage panels throughout the city. And those are available on our website. A major project this year was the addition of accessibility resources, including audio tours of all of our exhibits. This makes our exhibit content accessible for those with visual impairments and anyone who prefers to listen to the content rather than read it. We had several local residents reading the exhibit content, including his worship, Mayor Sauls. Most of the readers had a personal connection with the content they were reading. These tours are available on the museum's website or through QR codes in the exhibits. We completed a memorandum of understanding with the Snayaks Confederacy and Colville Confederated Tribes to create protocols for working together. We hope to have that signed this year. Our big news is that we finally have an accessibility lift operational in the museum after many, many years of working towards that goal, and as well as a universal accessible washroom. The lift was a huge undertaking, and installation took several months. We had incredible support from the city of Revelstoke, including funding for the planning stages and management and oversight from Laurie Donato and from Troy Biggs. This project would not have been possible without the support and commitment from the city and from our many funders, including federal and regional grants and donations from Revelstoke businesses, organizations, and individuals. This was truly a community project and will be of great benefit for all of those who can use a little help getting to the second floor, including myself some days. We look forward to having a grand opening celebration later this spring. We have a fantastic staff at the museum, and we're delighted to have Laura Van Zandt join us as full-time this year. She was previously working part-time. She's now our full-time assistant curator. And this is part of our succession plan as I start to plan my eventual retirement. It won't be this year, I'll tell you that, but I'm on the downslope from 65 to 70, so probably within a couple of years I'll be taking leaving full-time work anyway, and just doing the fun bits. Our board of directors is very skilled and they provide excellent financial direction and management. I'm going to brag a little bit. I received a great honor last week in Victoria, when I was a recipient of the King Charles III Coronation Medal through the Canadian Museums Association. 30,000 medals were distributed to people across Canada, and I was very honored to be among them. I appreciate all of the support from the community that makes it possible for me to do this work. We just before I went to Victoria, we had a fun event. We called it the Great Revelstoke Quiz, and that was a trivia night, all Revelstoke questions, and it was a super fun event. We threw and made sure it was quite hilarious. It included some crocheted chickens for stupid answers. I don't know if anybody will admit that they got a chicken, but that was part of the event, and we're really proud of the work that we do, but we also really have fun and we take joy in the work that we do. We greatly appreciate the support of the City of Revelstoke in our ongoing work to preserve and celebrate the history of Revelstoke. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy. I appreciate that. And there was some people in this room that were at the chicken questions and whatnot, and appreciate the fact that people took part in that. I want to thank you for your continued work with the museum and what you've done. It's exciting to hear that the lift is in play and that people are actually able to get out to the second floor and access everything. It's just wonderful to see what you're doing and to hear how many people come into the museum. That's astounding. So thanks for what you do. We're very proud of you and your group for what they have accomplished and continue to do. Any comments from council? Council Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Solis. Thank you, Kathy. Awesome work. Congratulations on the very, very well-deserved medal. Hopefully it's one of the biggest medals as well.
Nice little one with King Charles' face on it. I actually have it with me. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Maybe we should have medals with your face on them. Great job. I do have it's wonderful in the number of years and how you've, progressed, quite a different organization than when you first started and just continuous improvement. You said that this is the year of getting it done. Well, you've been the curator of getting things done for many, many years. So it's been a decade. It's been, and beyond. But nice to see that you're still riding that wave of improvements. I have a question. I was reading about one of the challenges that museums are having worldwide is acquisitions and where they store all this stuff. And you talked about the photos, and it's nice we can digitize them. But things, do you have any sort of comments or I understand some of the museums are actually having critical storage and challenges, and then also trying to determine how they display all this stuff that comes in.
Yeah, and that definitely is a valid concern. And to be honest, there's probably things in our collection that may never be on display. And we definitely have more items in storage than we do have on display. But they're well stored, and we know where things are through our database system. We have location codes for everything, so they are well managed. But it's definitely something to be concerned about. We're quite particular in what we collect. I think in the past we might have, if it was an interesting object but didn't have a particular history related to Revelstoke, we might still collect it. Whereas now we're being more discriminating about what we do collect. We're looking at things that have strong ties to Revelstoke and can help us to interpret the history rather than just being cool things. At some point, in the future, not currently, but in the future, we may need to look at off-site storage. That's not currently a concern, but it might be at some point. A lot of museums undertake a process called deaccessioning, which is sort of looking at the collection and seeing if there's things that don't support your mandate and aren't crucial to have in your collection. And there's a process for how to handle that and how to properly remove things from a collection. So if we get to that point, we will follow all of the standards for property accessioning. We haven't really done that formally yet, but it might come to that as we are starting to get a bit tight for space.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Lucien.
Thank you, Marshals. Thank you, Kathy, for the presentation. Sitting on the board, it's amazing how much you all as volunteers get done throughout the year. The Lift is an amazing project, which I know is taking you guys years to fundraise and actually get going, and it's great to see that come to fruition. I really enjoy sitting in on the meetings with you guys, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for the museum.
Thank you. We're happy to have you as sitting with our board as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none, I'll say thank you again, Kathy, and thank you for coming and presenting. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
All of us. Thank you. All right, council, we're going to move on to item 8A, governance committee. And there is some motions there, recommendations. So if someone wants to put the first motion on the table for me, please come to do so.
Recommend that the Advisory Planning Commission and the Heritage Advisory Commission consider the merits of merging the two commissions.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Devlin. Any discussion on the motion? This is basically, we're having a hard time getting some people out for some of the commissions, and putting the two together would work well. It will show heritage in all things with the Advisory Planning Commission. And so we want the two commissions to look at their own commissions and see if they feel that there's a merge. Anything further that you would like me to add, Councilor Palmer or Councilor Stapheners? On that, Councilor Palmer?
Thank you, Mayor Souls. So my comment that I made at the committee level that I'll make again now is understanding the capacity issues and the challenges with getting quorum. I think there maybe is another fundamental question is, are we, is council in general setting up these committees for success and best practices so that they feel and are making meaningful contributions. And so, because I think that's been a frustration with many communities over the years. So I just don't want to lose sight that the real problem might be something a little bit deeper.
Yeah, appreciate that. Councilor Chair.
I sit on both of these as the city council rep. I just want to remind council that the decisions that were made at this table on the Copeland, at that time I made a comment that the commission is run by a group of volunteers that have experience in the industry. This council decided not to listen to their decided not to listen to their recommendations. We put them in the heart of a controversy and we lost 2 members. We're now at a place where we're having trouble getting quorum. And I think this is a great idea as a way to fix the issue. This was mentioned to the APC, I believe, last week. They're interested in seeing what this means and what kind of applications they'll be looking at prior to taking it on. So they'd like to see it as well and do have an interest.
Appreciate your comments. Any other comments from council on the motion? Councilor Orlando.
Thank you, Mayor Sills. I'm just seeking clarity on the recommendation in front of us. So it is a recommendation to have the two commissions consider the merits of merging. My question is, what will staff present to them at that point where they're meant to discuss it? Within the report, it recommends a list of actions, but I don't know that those haven't been ratified by council yet. So I'm just wondering what sort of document or what sort of proposal staff will be taking forward to the two groups.
Mr. Simon, do you care to elaborate?
Through your worship, Councilor Orlando. So we would basically be having preliminary conversations with the commission just to gauge their appetite and then be looking for them to pass a resolution, basically saying that in general, they may be supportive of us exploring bylaw amendments. Bring that back to council. If council says, yep, we think this is a good way to go, you direct us to prepare the bylaw amendments. Ideally, we probably bring those back to APC, Heritage, make sure that they're both comfortable with the actual wording of the bylaw. A real key thing here, if we do end up going down this road, and I think we're pretty early on in discovering whether or not this is the right way to go, we can't lose the main components of the Heritage Commission. Like, this is not about dissolving that, it's about strengthening it. And so it's really critical that we work with both commissions to make sure that they're satisfied with how the bylaw is written, which spells out their marching orders from a terms of reference perspective. So it'll be an iterative process, but so we go to both commissions, they say, yeah, we're supportive of going forward with bylaw amendments, come back to council, present those resolutions, council gives us our marching orders, and we probably go back to the commission with the actual bylaw amendment itself or a resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Simon. Follow up, Councillor Orlando.
Your worship, yeah, that's great. I think what I'm looking for is because these, the 3 bullet points here have not been adopted by council, would want to hear back from the 2 commissions at the council table to hear what their feedback is on the preliminary discussion. So in my mind, it's just as written here, just have them consider it and then hear back the feedback from them. So
That's correct.
thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Stapleton.
I'm going to refrain from commenting at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, and someone want to put this motion on the table for me, please, Councillor Lusso.
The governance committee recommends that the following policies be approved as amended with concurrence that the policy statements derived from the former extract of the resolutions is consistent with the intent of the current council. A9 anniversary presentations, A10 proclamations, and A13 petition.
Great. And all of those things are in your package. Do I have a second for the motion? Councillor Palmer, any discussion on those motions? Seeing none, Councillor Orlando.
Your worship, there's quite a few changes here in 2 different sections. I've reviewed the document, but I just want to be clear. Anniversary presentation, A9, A10, A13, as discussed here. These are the ones that can contain changes. For example, anniversary presentation, change some of the dates as well as required a request. I'm just seeking a refresher. Petitions just simply says the same thing, but words about where someone can post it. I had a question about that one. Why is A13? It seems like it's exactly the same. I was wondering if staff could provide a little bit more background on what has changed. For example, A13.
Thank you, Councillor Orlando through Mayor Sells. What we were trying to do is take to standardize all of the policies. So in order to do that, our typical template for the policies has the purpose, the scope and applicability, and then the policy statement. So the policy statement for most of our newer policies is not an extract from a resolution. So all we tried to do was to massage the extract so that it was consistent with the rest of the policies.
Okay.
That work?
Yeah, if I could just ask a follow-up question. I guess the point of clarity is 9, 10, and 13 are both under section resolution or number 2 and number 3, and I'm just wondering why they're included in both.
It's just the other ones are at the, number 2 is just showing the policies at the end of that full resolution process. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the attachments are for the whole recommendation from the governance committee. So it contains all 5 attachments for the policies that we were recommending approval for. One of the first 3 are from an old extract converting into the current policy template. And the second 2 are basically just converting the existing one that is not an extract into the current template. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
All right, any other questions on this motion number 2? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Item number 3, someone want to put that on the table, Council
So
Lucero?
keep going. The governance committee recommends that the following policies be amended to a consistent format as determined by brand guidelines once approved with no substantive content changes, and that these policies be amended to include a regular two-year review date, A1, protection of personal information collected by ICBC, and A4, administrative fairness.
Second for the motion, please, Councillor Devlin. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. We're going to move on now to staff reports 11A, economic development, resort development strategy renewal process and timeline. Mr. Watmo or Ms. Moffat, you have an oversight that you would like to provide.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've the documentation provided.
Can we just have
Closer?
Sure, yeah, this way our council is online.
There we go. Sorry about that.
That's great, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Your Worship. The CD department is looking for council's approval to proceed with the resort development strategy process for the 2025-2027 strategy as laid out in the council report. And if you approve this recommendation, we'll be back to council on April 22nd to receive, to provide feedback, so you can provide feedback on the draft RDS.
All right. Any questions or comments from council prior to us putting this motion on the table? Councillor Stiffners?
Yes, sir. Through the chair to Mr. Watmouth, just wondering if we could possibly share this with the chamber for input.
Or input into, sorry, to Your Worship, for input into the RDS. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yes. Through Your Worship, there has been a survey already through TIC stakeholders, and we will be engaging with communications department through Talk Revelstoke for broader community engagement, and including through the Chamber of Commerce.
All right, good. Does that answer your question, Councillor Stiffners?
Sort of. I think maybe a more direct approach in communication rather than via Talk Revelstoke, if my understanding of that, of what his response is. I just think, doing surveys through Talk Revelstoke with external stakeholders such as established partners such as the Community Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce, I think it's just a little bit of a convoluted process.
Okay, thanks for your comment, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor. So just further to that, in the report, it does say that Revelstoke Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Revelstoke were consulted. Was that just through Talk Revelstoke, or were they directly consulted as well?
Sorry, through Your Worship, that has not gone through Talk Revelstoke yet. That's been through the TIC stakeholder survey.
Okay, so they were directly
Through this.
like
They
face
were
to face.
directly involved in that survey.
Sure, Kat, would you like to? Kat was leading the process in here and
Sure.
to give you a much better description.
Come on up to the podium, Kat, thanks.
So we do actually have, Caroline has been sitting in at the last TIC meeting as a guest, listening to our conversations regarding the timeline process. So she's involved in that conversation right now. And we do have a member from the Visitors Information Center on the commission or on the committee. So she is also involved in that and providing feedback as we work through all of this. So
Okay.
yeah, and Tourism Revelstoke also sits on the committee. So we do have quite an involved stakeholder group of all of these main partners that are helping provide input into the draft strategy.
So that communication is direct and ongoing.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Any follow-up, Councillor Palmer?
No, good, thank you.
Councillor Stiffners, follow-up?
No, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Any comments from balance of council? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for the motion to be put on the table, please. Councillor Devlin?
I'll move that the resort development strategy timeline for 2025 dated February 25th, 2025 for the purpose of renewing the resort development strategy for 2025 to 2027 be approved.
Second for the motion, Councillor Lucero. Any further discussion on this motion? Councillor Orlando?
Yeah, as CED rep and tourism infrastructure TIC, just reporting that, yeah, we're having big meetings, lots of people, lots of stakeholders, full room over there, including, I guess it was last week or the week before, so lots going on. and all the stakeholders involved in this. And this is essentially looking at the timeline. So putting the timeline forth and also providing an update. So yeah, happy to support this moving forward.
Great, appreciate that. I will call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Watnall and Ms. Moffat. Appreciate your input. We have correspondence, Arts Revelstoke support request letter. Any comments from council on this? And Ms. Moore, any comments regarding finances and budget regarding the request?
Through the chair, in response to this request, we have the standard, I believe it's $35,000 a year in the operating budget for Revy Live, and other funding towards Arts Revelstoke. However, some of the other details I will pass on to Director Donato.
Okay, Mr. Nunn?
Thank you, through your worship. As of right now, the only budgeted amount that we have for Arts Revelstoke is the $35,000. So if we were to offer an additional $5,000 for that contract, it would need to be just absorbed through an operating budget.
Okay, all right. Any questions or comments from council regarding this? Councilor Orlando?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Souls. So in their letter, there's 3 requests. One is for an additional 5,000. And I'm happy to support that if staff seem to think they can find it through operations. Number 2 is support for an application. So I assume we will see that through grant and aid. So that decision would come at a later point, is my understanding, when we process grants and aid. So we can look at it at that time. Third one, continue support as we pursue comprehensive assessment and cultural planning. This process is within the city's strategic planning documents, something that's been ongoing for a while, and Arts Revelstoke is one of them. So I think that, although that's a specific request, I'm happy to support that in general. It's a bit harder to nail that down other than just continuing on the work we've been doing, but happy to support that if need be now.
Okay, appreciate that. Any other comments from council? Does anyone want to make a motion regarding the 3 of these? Councilor Orlando.
Your worship, if I could do it 3 separately, it might be a little easier for me. So number 1, that the city provide an additional $5,000 towards Revy Live outside.
Do I have a seconder for that motion, please? Councilor Lucille. Discussion on that motion. Anyone else want to make comment? Councilor Palmer?
Yeah, there's part of me that doesn't want to make comment. So very, very supportive of Revy Live. It's doing awesome things for the community. And I would like to see us supporting it as the city has and the whole community has over time. And in general, that I would potentially be supportive of increased budgetary contributions. However, I do have concerns about the ad hoc approach and going through the budget process. If we do this for one organization, we can anticipate other organizations coming up and asking. So it starts to become the question that I raised before on the operating. If we can absorb $5,000 here, another couple thousand somewhere else, did we really do our due diligence on the operational budget? If there is this, slush money that's out there. Again, very supportive of Revy Live, but to do a one-off, I cannot support that without going through the opening up the whole budget process again, which there is time to do.
Great. So Mr. Nutter, you have your hand up, then I'm going to go to Councilor Steveners.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to clarify that when I said that it would have to be absorbed through an operating budget, that does not mean we have a slush fund. That means that it will just be charged to a budget, whether we have the money or not. So we have not budgeted for that amount. So I'm anticipating that we will go over budget to whatever I charge that amount to.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Councillor Staples.
I was just gonna speak in favor of supporting this. I believe that there is a significant economic benefit for our community by supporting Revy Live, and I hope that in the future we should be seeing some kind of economic benefit analysis and seeing what it brings into our community. I think it's one of the things that we do that really sets us apart from other communities and makes us really unique. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Cherry.
I just want to, quick comment through the chair to everybody. I do agree with Councillor Palmer's theme of what he's saying is, we have to be diligent on how we spend money. All should go through the budget process. But I also do believe that Art Revelstoke and Revy Live Outside bring a lot of benefit economically to the community. The trickle down effect of that through all of the businesses around is substantial, and I will be supporting this.
Okay, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Yeah, so fun being a politician can use terms like slush fund, and I think it begs a question: if we're going to proceed with this, where does that money come from? Do we look at I think, quite frankly, I think the recreation department generally is a very tight area. So should this money be coming from somewhere else? And there is a council contingency fund, so which arguably is a slush fund, the pleasure of council. And I don't know how much is in there, but I guess there's a question: how much is in there, and should there be an amendment to this motion that it come out of the council contingency?
Okay. Appreciate that. Councillor Cherry, you have another question or comment?
You have a question through the chair to Ms. Donato. I believe there's a reserve fund in the Public Art Committee. Can you speak to that? And would this be a project that could be supported financially through them?
Ms. Donato, you want to make a comment, or you want me to go to Ms. Moore?
Thank you, Your Worship. I can start off and then
Okay.
Ms. Moore wants to jump in.
Perfect.
The Public Art Reserve Fund is a fund that's set aside to acquire public art pieces. I'm not clear on whether or not arts entertainment would fall under that. I would presume no, but I would need to get more clarification on that.
Good. Thank you for that comment. Ms. Moore, thank you for your patience.
Through the chair, I will echo Ms. Donato's comments about absorbing it into the budget. It essentially wouldn't be absorbed, a budget line item would be over and somewhere else would need to be under. I would emphasize that the operating budgets for the city have become increasingly tighter with inflationary pressures over the last few years. And we are seeing some departments by nature of inflation go over budget. And so this is something that I would start to get concerned about budget creep. What I would recommend is exploring other funding options that may be eligible for this use of funds like MRDT and RMI. I would also suggest that council consider deferring this to the grant and aid meeting for finance committee at the end of March, where it's being considered with other grant and aids. So that is less of an ad hoc decision that will have an impact to the budget.
Okay. I think there's probably, I'll go to Councillor Cherry, but I think there seems to be an appetite with that. So thank you for that comment. Councillor Cherry.
Thanks. I was just going to say that sounds like a happy medium for everybody here. Would I be supportive if there was an amendment to the motion on the table, or if it was pushed over there?
Okay. Somebody want to make that motion?
Yeah, motion to defer to grant and aid.
Okay. Second for the motion, please, Councillor Devlin. Any further discussion on Councillor Renato?
Sure. Just a point for clarity. There was a motion to support this. Now we have a second motion. Is that
clarification? Have I screwed something up here in this?
No, Worship, you have not. You can have an amending motion.
Okay.
Yeah, just, and maybe procedurally, it's always fun to get this down right. So it's a deferral motion. I'm not sure if it's debatable.
It's not.
So it's actually referring that motion to later on.
Okay, so we're gonna, Councillor. You're asking for clarification?
Yeah, well, 2 points. Number one, grant and aid process has its own rules and internal rules. It seems from the letter here that the Arts Revelstoke is interested in a separate grant and aid application, so that might challenge. It seems like we're talking about two different things here. So putting the two in there might collide with what they're talking about. I don't really think that was their intent with this.
Okay. So there is, I'm going to go back for clarity. So we have a motion to defer. It's not debatable.
That's correct.
And so I'm going to call the question on that motion, and then the other motion that was on the table. Do I have to vote on that as well or not, because we're deferred?
We're deferring.
Okay, so I'll call the question.
Sorry, Your Worship. So typically a motion to defer gives you a specific time you're deferring it to, and I believe based on Director Moore's previous comment that it would be in March.
Yeah.
So at the Finance Committee, is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it's March 26th.
Okay, Councillor, go ahead, Councillor Orlando, and then Councillor Cherry.
Just a point of clarity there, the motion, I believe, was to defer it to the grant in aid discussion, so that is unclear to me because that is a separate item. Now we're discussing Finance Committee, whether we should defer to Finance, so I'm seeking some clarity because I don't know that we would refer the question of and grant and aid, because in fairness, we're going to consider many different grants and aid at that time, and then are we going to be juggling whether or not to fund this separately at the same time? It seems cleaner to have that somewhere else, such as finance or a subsequent council meeting.
Just more comment.
Through the chair, the intent this year at the second March Finance Committee meeting is to bring forward a report that lists all grant and aid provided to various user groups within the city, whether that is through a leasehold agreement that is under market value, whether it is a cash grant and aid, a facility use, and so on, so that as the Finance Committee is deliberating the grant and aid budget, how it is being assigned, and their council contingency, they can get a larger picture of everything that is being provided on an annual basis.
Okay, appreciate that. Councillor Cherry, you have a comment before I ask a question on deferment?
Yeah, I actually have a question to the chair. I may need a little help on this one. How would I go bringing this forward to the discussion table for the Public Art Committee to see if this is something that's within their T's and C's to fund as well?
Mr. Nando, do you have any comment?
Through your worship, I don't believe this fits under the terms of reference for the Public Art Committee.
Okay, all right. Does that answer your question, Councillor Cherry?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, I'm going to call a question. All those in favor of deferring this motion to the Finance Committee in March? Opposed? Note that Councillor Orlando is opposed. Councillor Cherry, clarification, please. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay. Councillor Staples, yay or nay?
Yay.
Okay. All right. Motion to defer has been approved. Moving on to item number 2. Councillor Orlando, do you want that to put on that on the table?
Your Worship, I just want to acknowledge it, but I don't think a resolution is needed. They're just simply requesting for support of the grant and aid for facilities. I think that's something we can consider when all of the applications come to grant and aid committee.
Okay.
So I don't think anything is needed right now or would be appropriate to do right now.
And number 3, how do you feel about that?
I think if council wishes, we could voice that continued support right now. I don't know if that's necessary. but I'm happy to put it out there, that council supports, the pursuit of comprehensive assessment and cultural planning, with support from economic development.
Okay, so I have a second for that motion. Councilor Lucille, any further discussion on that motion? Councilor Orlando?
Just for background, I think this is already within our strategic planning and sort of within the process. I know I've attended a couple meetings along the way in the past several months on this ongoing process. It's not just Revelstoke and the city, there's lots of other stakeholders involved. This, I think, is just a general support comment that really does not have any nuts and bolts impact, but it's just nice to respond to a community group asking for some support.
Okay, all right, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to a correspondence letter we received from Mr. Vital regarding pickleball. I just want to weigh in briefly on that. I have met Mr. Vital once, had a phone call with him once, and I sent a letter out on January 15th, a letter that was supported by staff regarding our barriers to pickleball and the ability to just have a drop-in program because of how our community facilities are operated, because it's multi-purpose rooms. And obviously the answer was not what Mr. Wyler wanted to hear. Mr. Nato, do you have comments on any of that before we go further?
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. So currently we do offer pickleball in the facility through the pickleball club. So they book regularly scheduled time slots at the community center, and they offer the pickleball drop-in program for their members. We also have opened it up to the public, not as a drop-in program, but if the lines are on the court surface and the facility is not being booked, people can call ahead to check on availability, and if the space is free, they can come down to the center and play pickleball. We just don't offer scheduled drop-in sessions due to the way the facility operates in terms of the bookings we have, the setup requirements for each booking. We don't have janitorial services throughout the day. So if we have a large evening booking, the equipment is pulled up the night before and stored in the rooms, or the rooms are set up the night before the large event. So that limits how we may be able to use the space during the day. And that's a barrier to offering a structured program in the space, as well as the floor that we have at the community center is not a sport floor. It is vinyl flooring designed for high commercial use. It has no absorption. It's not the floor of choice for sporting activities. So scheduling a programmed sport activity on that floor is not a great idea. People do use it because it's the only option they have right now, but it's not ideal and it's not their preference. The pickleball club did try to offer drop-in outside of their scheduled times. However, they found it a bit difficult to administer, so they've since dropped that. So we've opened up the space just as I've explained.
Okay, thanks for that comment. Any other comments or questions from council? Councilor Lucille and Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Question through to Director Donato. Would there be an ability to, instead of people having to call in to find out about availability, publish a schedule like you guys do for the arena or pool, just so people would know when that space could be available?
Mr. Nato, comment.
Through your worship, it's a little bit more challenging than the arena because the arena has scheduled ice uners that book a year in advance. So the program's already set. We have a lot of bookings coming in weekly, so it would be difficult to maintain that schedule for public access and have it. We just don't want people wasting their time coming down to the facility to find out it's booked. So we just say call ahead. And that itself has not been an issue for people.
Okay.
Yeah, we have had many people drop in and play pickleball. This may be just an isolated incident, I don't know.
Thanks for that comment, and I can speak to that a little bit. In my previous life, my previous career, I would be phoning up the staff and saying, is there availability for service? And if there was a time that was booked, that was just open, they would say, this time is available, you can schedule it and go from there. And if we'd scheduled that and then it still looked like it was empty and people were coming down to play pickleball, and all of a sudden they came and it was some other event. So there's some difficulty with that. So, Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Through the chair, just thank you to the Recreation Department. It seems to me that we should be applauded for working really hard to accommodate quite a large variety of special interest groups within the community, and I think you do an outstanding job. This reminds me of the boxing club when they came and were asking for more assistance, and I think we see that from time to time, and we want to help. The reality is there's budget constraints, there's facility constraints, and then there's implications for other users, and that theme sort of carries on. It does, from my perspective, point to the need of the multi-purpose building that's as we change and evolve. Pickleball has now become this big thing, and the city's done a great job of accommodating that by changing tennis courts, allowing pickleball people to come in and put lines on. And that group has done a great job of promoting the sport and growing it as well. And we see that, but it's one of those challenges that we have. And if we do one thing in isolation, there's implications that go beyond that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Souls.
Appreciate that comment. Any other comments? Seeing none, we will leave that as is and the way staff have got it organized. BC Farmer Market letter of support request, that is for the coupon program. I think the coupon program is an incredible way for people to be able to get fresh food. It's not a gift to those. They actually have to have an education component with it. They go for some sort of teaching regarding good food, and they are then given letters of or tickets for purchasing good quality food. I am totally in support of this as we move forward, and any kind of help that we can give to support this so that the programs from the provincial government can be supported. I would support that. Any other comments or from council? Councilor Lucero.
Thank you, Mayor Schultz. I have to echo what you said. This is a huge asset and really helps people that would have problems accessing fresh produce from the farmers market to have the opportunity to go down and purchase things locally. I'm definitely in support, and yeah, if there's any other comments, I would put a motion on the table.
Okay, go ahead.
Put a motion on the table that staff draft a letter for the Honorable Josie Osborne in support of the BC Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program.
Seconder for the motion, Councilor Palmer. Any further discussion on this? Councilor Palmer, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mayor Souls. At UBCM last fall, I had quite a good conversation with the BC Farmers Market Association on this particular program. I was aware of it, but I wasn't aware of how positive it was. And it's positive for the farmers market, the local vendors as well. There's a direct benefit to them. So it is quite an astounding program, and I applaud the work that the BC farmers markets are doing in promoting programs like this. Thank you, Mayor Souls.
Thank you. It's a great program. I can talk firsthand on this. When I was assisting my family and they were selling their corn here in the community, the ability to see those who normally couldn't afford produce get their produce and the smiles on their faces, and to see the smaller ones knowing that they're going to be fed well was astounding. So I'm wholeheartedly in support of this. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? This is carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to communications, Ms. Petnuzzo has penned a letter regarding our financial plan. Ms. Moore, I understand, I believe I've seen your response. Do you care to weigh in on that?
Through the chair, I have no further comments other than what I responded via email. Just directing Ms. Panuza to various online meeting links and survey details that she requested.
All right, thank you for that. Any other comments from council regarding that? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to CSRD mosquito control letters. So we're getting many letters from community members from Area B. And so those letters, if they have not already been copied on to CSRD, to the manager responsible for that, they will. And so that will come up in CSRD discussions in the next month or two. Any other comments from council regarding that? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to, I'm sorry. Councilor Lund.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayor Souls. As I understand it from CSRD staff, there will be a meeting on the day after tomorrow, the 27th, where this I think it's a budget meeting coming up where this has potential to have impact. My question is, moving forward with this, what will the city be doing with its representation at the CSRD board on this question? One of the details here is that it's kind of a bit of a gray area because the city limits are right there. A lot of the people writing in are sort of further down in the CSRD. But in terms of the overall control program that is in place, when we go forward in the next week or two, as as we're being urged on by many letters that are also copied to CSRD rep, what will the city be doing with that representation? And secondly, I feel that the city should at least raise the question. The management plan, the current one, expires next year. So they're on the last year of the budget cycle for the existing plan. The plan next year could raise this question. So that's my question, is what sort of position will we be advocating for or doing at the CSRD board?
Well, I'll be sitting in that meeting. I believe the meeting tomorrow will be, or the day after tomorrow, regarding the budget. Our letters that we've received have all been in favor of moving forward with the mosquito control program. I'm not sure what the budget details are at this point in time. I haven't read through everything yet. I'm supportive of this moving forward, but we will have a wholehearted conversation around the CSRD board table to see where everybody feels we should be going with this. Councilor Cherry, you have comment or questions?
I'd actually like to make a motion that City Council supports the increased mosquito control efforts in the CSRD Area B.
Okay, make that motion. And that will be seconded. Councilor Devlin, you're seconding that. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Palmer?
I could.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Understand the intent behind the motion. It really is in the purview of regional district. And there has been at least one email talking about the ecological damages from this. Sort of reminds me in my youth, had a couple canaries that the mosquito program there that died promptly because I didn't close the windows fast enough, and there's indications about mosquitoes. So I just would like to flag that there's another aspect, and then the budget implications. So I'm sort of wrestling with whether I actually support the motion. Sure. It's because it's supporting. Okay, could I have the motion read back?
Sure. Ms. Delassalle, do you have that motion or understand it fully to read it back?
That increased mosquito control is supported by the city of Revelstoke.
So I'll reluctantly support the motion because it's talking about control, I mean, in a general sense. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. Any other comments from Councilor Orlando? Do you have your hand up?
No, but I'm happy to make a comment.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel that it's a technical issue. The current control program cost is about $80K a year. The contractors who look at expanding it based on some of the input here estimate that that would double the costs of the program to treat further down there. I would emphasize it really is a CSRD management issue because that expansion part of it really is outside of city limits. It's CSRD area. There's a lot of ways to go forward with this. My feeling is that we should support discussion of options going forward because to expand it, the program and define it, you would first need to define where you're going to put it, whether it's effective or not, and that requires technical knowledge. And to fund it, likely would not come until next year's budget cycle because that would require a management plan to support that. So I'm happy to support, that the CSRD has this discussion, directly deal with the residents and communicate with them. And also at the regional district level, if that is not something that is ultimately supported, there is options, for example, for LSA formation, et cetera. There's not just one pathway forward. So my preference would be to support that discussion and communication at the CSRD level about how we're going to go forward.
Okay. Any other comments, Councilor Palmer? You have further comment?
Yeah, Councilor Orlando sort of raises some interesting points. So we're supporting, this motion is supporting increased budget outside our area, essentially, area B. And so is that a zero implication budget wise to us? Does the area B want that increase in general? Obviously, a number of residents do. Including a number of city of Revelstoke residents are in here as well. And then you have that little area just outside Revelstoke, but other areas in area B, and then area C, area D, area E. So
they'll look at each area kind of individually because it's financial implications regarding that. It will be the board as a whole dealing with it, which means that I can weigh in because I'm a municipal representative. And so I can bring your concerns from this table, having heard what you've said, and we can have that robust discussion at the table as to where we go. But their manager of things, Mr. Von Nostrand, will be able to weigh in where he's going with this sort of thing and how it works. And I know in some of the regions of the regional district, in past, other people have said no, and then there wasn't any program, and so we'll see how things go. All right, so I'll call a question on support, and then bring that to Councilor Orlando.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So your worship. So again, it is to support increasing the program. Is there any way to get a bit more? What? Sorry, if I could get that read back again.
Ms. Delasal, could you read it back, please?
That increased mosquito control is supported by the city of Revelstoke.
Councilor Palmer, you have a comment?
yeah, so I'd like to put an amending motion to change the support for increased funding to support further discussion on the merits of expanding the program.
Okay. And is that okay with the mover and the seconder?
Just make, no, I'm actually making a formal amending motion.
Okay. And that's
Sorry, did you just make a motion to have another conversation about a conversation? Did I hear that correctly, or am I misunderstanding?
So Mayor Souls, further to Councilor Orlando's comments, which I think have merit, is to amend this to from a direct support motion to a discussion, so that we're not weighing into the regional district. So that's the purpose behind it. It's to amend the motion.
All right, so my clarity on that, I can go ahead and call a question on the amendment.
You need a seconder.
Councilor Orlando.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I will call a question on do I go back to
The
the first?
amendment
Yeah,
and then the original as amended.
okay. All right, I'll call a question on the amending motion. All those in favor? Opposed? No motion. Councilor Cherry is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. This motion has been amended. I will go back to calling the vote on the motion as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? No, Councilor Cherry is opposed. Balance of council is in favor.
Not opposed.
I'm sorry.
I think
I
he's
did
saying.
vote in the positive there for that, for
Okay,
the
thank
second
you.
one.
Okay, so that's positive. That's unanimous. Thank you. Appreciate that. Is that clear, Ms. Delasal?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are going to move on to governance committee minutes of February 12th. I think we've dealt with pretty much everything that we discussed in that meeting. But any questions from council regarding anything else? Councilor Palmer, you care to?
Thank you, Mayor Souls. I'd just like to thank staff for the work that we're putting into this. I think it's going to help clarify the position of this council as we move forward and gradually making headway. So thank you very much to staff.
Appreciate that. Moving on to multipurpose facility advisory committee minutes. Councilor Terry, Councilor Lucio, any comments from either of you?
Yes, so we had a presentation by Mr. Harding from HCMA. First, we talked about kind of cost benchmarking. So we were looking at projects that were completed or near completion going back to 2017 and different funding models between the municipality and other organizations. We did some facility test fits. So this was with a 2,000 seat bowl arena with an additional gymnasium, a couple multi-purpose rooms, and had that fit on a couple test sites. So that included the Public Works Yard and 2 different locations down at Centennial Park. There was a discussion about the cost estimates and what that would look like for the city. Whether it was just the arena or the arena and the gymnasium, with the ability to phase in the gymnasium as long as we leave space on the site to add that in later. And then we talked about our arena reserve, how 2% of the 6% tax increase this year is going to the reserve. And then questions about the forum and the roof right now were brought up. So we are getting another assessment done. So we have a full comprehensive answer of if it's savable, what financial implications the city could see. We don't want to lose a user season in the arena to maybe stretch that life to build up our reserves so there is less of a tax burden and debt that the city would take for building this facility.
All right, thank you for your comments. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I am going to move on to questions from the press. First of all, I will go, Mr. Lindquist, is he still here? Mr. Lindquist, you're here. Any questions?
To staff, on the minutes posting for the mosquito concerns, will I find an extensive record of all public correspondence, all public letters?
So I'm just going to weigh in on that. Most of the letters we received to Revelstoke City Council copied into CSRD. So you should be able to get copies of those letters or information from CSRD communications person, Ms. Hughes. She should be able to at least give you some information as to what their policy is with that.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship.
All right, Ms. Delasal, any questions online?
We have no questions online, Your Worship.
Great, thank you. All right, council, I'd like to go in camera pursuant to section 90.1 K and D of the community charter. Councillor Devlin, Councillor Lucille, all in favor? Motion's carried. We'll take a 10-minute break and we will come back in camera. Thank you.
Very frustrating.
So the Class D estimates have come in.
What are we looking at?